and good morning. I hope that you're all okay. This morning, well, I'll let Farron explain exactly what we are doing, but we've got a panel of people here for you to ask questions to, find out a little bit more about working in the manufacturing industry. It's one of the biggest growing sectors in West Yorkshire at the moment, so it's inevitable that some of you will end up working in it. So this is just an opportunity for you to find out a little bit more and kind of use their brains a little bit. So Farron, over to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Farron Convey. I work for Ahead Partnership, and I'm delighted today to be presenting the Leeds Manufacturing Festival Careers Panel. Leeds Manufacturing Festival is kindly sponsored by E3 Recruitment, Safri Champness Chartered Accountants, and also Leeds City College. Today's an opportunity for you to learn all about manufacturing. It's to learn about how great manufacturing in this region is, and the different types of things that get made and produced, and also the diversity of roles within manufacturing as well. Your panel are here to answer your questions. So teachers, if you can start thinking about which students would like to ask questions in a couple of minutes, then I'm going to come to the classrooms. But to begin with, our panelists are going to introduce themselves. So Jack, would you like to go first, please?
Hi, my name's Jack. I work for the Leeds Welding Company. My job is in dispatch, so that involves checking in goods, checking out goods, and just making sure that the business is flowing smoothly.
Thanks for joining us today, Jack.
Thank you.
Eleanor.
So my name's Eleanor Maguire. I work for Seeker Everbuild, and I am classed as a silicon mixer. I have to handle chemicals, drive forklift trucks, all sorts of things like that. Very hands-on, very manual job, but love it.
Excellent, thank you, Eleanor. Laura.
Hi everyone, my name's Laura Rogers. I work for E3 Recruitment, and we specialise in engineering and manufacturing recruitment. My role is PR and communications manager. So what that basically means is we promote the work that E3 Recruitment does to both clients, the manufacturers, and also to candidates to get them involved and get them wanting to apply for certain roles, making them aware that we are here to help.
Thanks for that introduction, Laura, and thanks again for sponsoring the event. Mark, good morning.
Hello everyone, my name is Mark Sherwood. I'm a qualified accountant and senior manager at Safri Champness, a firm of accountants. I don't work directly in manufacturing, but as part of our role we offer accounting services and advisory services to manufacturing businesses right across Yorkshire. So we're well aware of some of the common issues and opportunities and opportunities that exist across the manufacturing sector. So I'd like to think we've got some good insight to offer today.
I'm sure you will do. Thanks for joining us, Mark, and thanks again for sponsoring. In a moment, we're going to come to classroom 9AG1 for a question, then 9AG2. But to kick us off, Eleanor, could you tell us what manufacturing is, please?
So I would say manufacturing is making products that we use every single day, and the processes that go into that.
Excellent, thank you for that. 9AG1, would you like to unmute and ask the first question, please?
Okay, we've got Mohammed. Do you have a question?
What's the average salary?
I don't know if that
It
translates.
came through, absolutely. Thank you
Wonderful.
very much, Miss Copson. Yes. Laura, what's the average salary in manufacturing?
So there are a very broad range of roles, and so there's a very broad range of salaries, but in general I would say it's £20,000 to £40,000.
Sounds pretty good to me. Thank you, Mohammed and Ms. Copson, for the first question. In a moment, we will come to 9AG3 for a question, but next we're going to take a question from 9AG2, please.
Okay, Jaden, you want to go for it? Okay, so I don't know if that came through. Jaden asked, how long have you been working in manufacturing?
Thank you. Eleanor, tell us how long you've been working in manufacturing, please.
Well, I've been working in manufacturing since I started my apprenticeship in 2018. So I did my apprenticeship for 2 years, and I've been with my current company for 1.5 years.
Excellent. You mentioned an apprenticeship. For those people watching that have heard the phrase but aren't absolutely sure what it is, could you give us a description as to what an apprenticeship exactly is, please, Eleanor?
So for me, an apprenticeship, or the one I did, was, I'm sure you've heard it before, earning and learning at the same time. So you get good experience in a proper job and a work environment. You're also going to college, or I did anyway. Most apprenticeships do offer a college or a degree, can do degree apprenticeship, but it just plunges you into work and you are learning new skills every single day, which go towards your job. You're not wondering where that's going to go afterwards. You are learning towards the job that you're doing.
Fantastic, thank you for that. 9AG3, can we get a question from you, and then we're going to come to 9AG4.
Morning, everyone. My phone would like to know what first inspired you to join manufacturing.
Fantastic, Jack. I think that's one for you.
So I started off. It was actually in primary school. I used to come home and I used to go to my granddad's for tea, and we used to basically, he had a bike in his garage, and we always used to tinker with his bike or the camper van or something like that. And you know, I was always brought up around manufacturing or mechanical engineering, and it kind of just grew from there.
Sounds like a great childhood. 9AG4, can we get a question from you, please?
I wanted to know, what sort of options would you be looking for on a CV that students have chosen at GCSE and A levels?
Thank you for that question. Laura, what options are you looking for on a CV? What subjects are you looking for that are going to inspire you to want to interview some of the students?
So I think the STEM subjects are really important. They're the key subjects where you need to try really hard and get the best grade that you can do. No matter if you want to go into manufacturing or another industry, English and maths are just so important. So
absolutely, minimum grade 4 and above in English and maths for all roles in manufacturing and outside manufacturing. Really good question, thank you for that. 9AG5, please, and then we'll come on to 9AG6.
Could I just ask a question on behalf of 9AG? What's the best experience you've had during the start of your working career?
Mark, what's the best experience during the start of your working career?
I think one of the most interesting ones I've had, we worked with a company a few years ago who built sets for things like theme parks, museums and film sets as well. So there are companies around this area who are involved in big projects like that. An example I can give, we used to go out to their site and there'd be parts of the Harry Potter set on there. So that was always interesting to be involved in. You know, there's a huge variety of options around the manufacturing sector across this area. So, you know, it's not just boring everyday items. There are exciting things out there as well, and there's a whole host of things you can get involved in. It's good to be involved in.
Thanks, Mark. 9AG6, do you have a question for the panel?
Yeah, hi. So our question was, do you still notice a gender gap within manufacturing?
Eleanor, do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. There is still a gender gap within manufacturing. And the only way we can change that is getting more women into the sector and changing the attitudes by starting those conversations. So say for my job, it's quite physical. A lot of men at my work have now been proved wrong. They thought that I couldn't do it. It was tough in the beginning, but yeah, it's still quite a male-dominated sector.
Thank you for that question. It's a really important question, and it's one of the reasons that we're hosting this careers panel as part of Leeds Manufacturing Festival. We want to try and change people's perceptions and bust some of the myths, which Eleanor is a great example of doing so. Thank you very much for that really important question. 9AG7, do you have a question for the panel, please?
We want to know if the people who go into manufacturing are diverse. Like, is it a diverse workforce?
Laura, do you want to take that one, please?
Yeah, of course. Yes, it is a very diverse workforce, and it's something that is really important to manufacturing and trying to build on all the time. So it's important to have diverse, it's important people from different backgrounds, important that we have females in there, because everybody brings something different to the table and brings new ideas and enthusiasm.
Thank you. 9AG8, can we take a question from your class, please?
Hiya, we'd just like to ask one of the panel what their first job was.
I'll tell you what, let's ask everybody for that. Eleanor, what was your first job?
My first ever job when I was 16, I was working at Next Clearance, which has now turned into Mod Pizza in town and Cozy Club Above, so no longer there, quite a long time ago.
Jack, what about you?
I was working in Leeds City Market, selling handbags for my auntie.
Excellent. Laura?
I worked at Hazelwood Foods when I first left school in the summer before college, and it's a pickling factory. So doing things with pickled foods, pushing spring onions and pickled onions into jars and putting jars off the conveyor belts into boxes.
So started in manufacturing, I like that.
Yeah.
Mark?
My first job was part-time in Homebase, the DIY store. So as a 16-year-old, pretending I knew about DIY was quite interesting, but learned a lot about communications and dealing with customers, so it was all good.
Absolutely, lots of skills are transferable, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
9AG9, can we get a question from you, please?
Hi, so we're wondering, first of all, if it's not been asked already, what can young people bring to manufacturing?
It hasn't been asked already. So, Jack, what would you say young people can bring to manufacturing and to the organisations within manufacturing, please?
Well, I think young people, they've been brought up around technology, so they're more intuitive in that sense of the word. But I think, you know, they're coming with new ideas, new philosophies, being brought up in a different generation to the generations that already work at the business. So, you know, they do bring a lot, and I think they bring new ideas to the table, which do help the business move forward.
Absolutely. I think the manufacturers I'm talking to as well are really, really keen to employ young people, which again is why they want to be involved in Leeds Manufacturing Festival and want to be involved in events like today. Thank you for that really important question. 9AG1, can we get a question from you again, please?
What, sorry, I don't think you can hear this one. What extracurriculars could students get involved in to help them be competitive in your industry?
Laura, is there something you want to add? Because you look at a lot of CVs, don't you? What sort of extracurricular things are you looking for on CVs?
So I think any type of sports teams, it shows that you're a good team player, that you can communicate with different people outside your friendship groups and family. It shows there's commitment, there's enthusiasm, there's passion. So any type of team sports is great. And just generally any types of hobbies as well. I think that's a big thing, showing that you're committed to something and there's a passion there for something other than your studies and your social life.
I think absolutely. And when I've recruited people for a variety of roles onto apprenticeships, for example, I look for people who've done some volunteering. So there are plenty of volunteering opportunities in your community. Maybe it's a youth club, maybe it's somewhere else. But if you look up volunteering in your local area, that helps build skills like Mark mentioned earlier, communication skills, as Laura mentioned, teamwork, proving that you're reliable. That's something that most employers would be really pleased to see volunteering on a CV. 9AG2, can we come back to you and get another question from your classroom, please?
So Simi has asked, did you have any backup plans in case manufacturing didn't work out for you?
Eleanor, did you have a backup plan?
I think manufacturing was my backup plan at the time. So I think with the qualifications you gain through an apprenticeship, a backup plan, I'm not saying it's not needed in case something doesn't work out, but you do gain qualifications that you can then transfer into another job. So anything to do with science, like Laura mentioned, your STEM studies and things like that, engineering, chemicals, those are all quite transferable. Like the apprenticeship I did was quite varied. So manufacturing is such a big industry in Yorkshire or West Yorkshire at the moment, and it is growing. You probably won't need a backup plan in the next 10, 20 years, in all honesty, but don't hold me to that.
Wise words and a really good question. Thanks for asking that. 9AG3, can we get a question from you, please?
Hi guys. My form have asked, you've already mentioned apprenticeship, but if they were to go and do a degree, what kind of degree would you be looking for to go into manufacturing?
Laura, do you want to answer that one, please?
I think there are lots of different types of degrees that are relevant to manufacturing. So what I would suggest is really get a good understanding, do your research and find out about the types of roles that are available, because as we've touched upon so far, manufacturing is just vast. There's just so many different avenues that you can go down. There's so many different types of roles. It's not just actually on the factory floor making things. It could be that you're a design engineer and you're actually designing the product. It could be that you work in health and safety, making sure that the facility where you work is nice, safe and secure for all the employees. It could be that you work in marketing like myself and you're actually marketing those products, that you work in human resources and you're looking after all the employees that work there. There's just so many disciplines within manufacturing. So I would suggest really looking into what it is you want to do, potentially getting some work experience if possible, and then you'll get a clearer idea of potentially the route you want to take, and then you can start to look at the different degrees that are available and will get you to where you want to be.
Excellent, thank you for that, Laura. Jack, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your apprenticeship, please?
So I started my apprenticeship September 2016 after coming out of sixth form. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you guys need to come straight out of school from year 11. So I started after I'd done sixth form. I went to Leeds City College, did a fast track level 2, and then I did a level 3 for another 3 years. And now I'm doing a level 4 apprenticeship just because I wanted to further myself, and I felt like my level 3 wasn't enough for me personally, but obviously it's different for everybody.
Excellent. Thanks for telling us about that, Jack. 9AG4, could we get a question from your room, please?
Yeah, some of our students are just wondering, is there many opportunity to travel the world with the manufacturing industry?
Laura, do you think you could answer that one, please?
Yeah, I think depending on what role you're in and also which company you work for, then yes, potentially there is opportunity. If you're working for a company that has clients the other side of the world, and if you're like a service engineer or you're a project manager, potentially you can go and work at that client's facility, or it might be that you work for a multinational manufacturer that has bases all over the world, and it might be that you have to go across to the facility in China, in America, and do work there with other team members that aren't necessarily based where you were based in the UK. So there is definitely lots of opportunity to travel.
There really is, isn't there? There's another supporter of Leeds Manufacturing Festival called Sulzer, who have a very large site in South Leeds. And I happen to know that somebody there who started on an apprenticeship there, who's been there 7 or 8 years, is moving to one of their other sites based in Australia at the end of this month. So he started off as an apprentice and now is moving to the other side of the world. So there really are opportunities to go and work elsewhere. And I know that they've got people based in that site that were born in Brazil and that started working in their site in Brazil, and now have moved to Leeds and work over here. So there's definitely opportunities to travel. So thank you for that question. 9AG5, what would you like to ask?
Hello, I think this question might have been asked in a different way, but we've just had a question from one of the students. What A levels do you need? Have we already had that question?
I don't think we've had what A levels. Jack, do you want to talk about that?
So I gathered, I kind of knew what I was wanting to do when it came to choosing my A levels. So I did A level product design, I did A level science, I did BTEC level 3 business, and BTEC level 3 engineering as well. So I kind of based my A levels and BTEC options at that stage of my education around what I was wanting to do, because I knew that all that I'd do is it'd benefit me when it came to interviews and to showing my skills.
That makes sense. Mark, what A levels would the students need to do if they wanted to move into accountancy?
It's quite varied, actually. I was very specific with mine, so I knew what I wanted to do. I did business studies, economics and accounting and maths. But generally speaking, a lot of people that come into accountancy don't necessarily have that specificity in their options. As long as you're getting decent grades across subjects that you enjoy and can talk about the skills you've got and apply them to the situations that we will encounter, then that's probably more important rather than picking specific options at that stage, because a lot of the training for accountancy comes on the job or through formal qualifications as well. So the A-level options are less important, I would say.
That makes sense. 9AG7 or 9AG6, sorry, could we get a question from you first, please?
Thought we were getting away with that.
Not quite.
So yeah, our question is around COVID, and a couple of things. What's been the main impact on manufacturing as a result of COVID, and how's it affected each of you individually within your jobs?
That's a really, really good question. We will get everyone to answer this. We'll start with you first, Eleanor, please, if we may.
Right. So I was working at my previous company when COVID started and was on furlough, and then because of COVID, it shut down pretty much, and to do with Brexit and other things. But then obviously other opportunities arise, and I'm now at my current job. What COVID did for my current job, because we make building products, everyone was doing DIY during COVID, so it boomed, if anything.
Thanks, Eleanor. Jack, could we come to you, please?
So during COVID, I did not get furloughed, so I was seen as, again, like a key worker. I was working at the business throughout COVID, and just basically making sure that the business was running and that it was being maintained, really. So no, I didn't have any days off.
What about you, Laura? How did COVID impact your working life and also manufacturing in general, do you think?
So for me personally, I actually got put on furlough from the March to, I think it was to the July, and then I started working again. And in terms of manufacturing and recruitment, so when it all first started, the manufacturers that we work with, because we do two different types of recruitment. We do permanent recruitment when somebody comes and works for your company on a permanent basis, or they could be a temporary member of staff. So that's where we would pay for them. They just come in, do the job, and then that normally tends to be for a 12-week period. And then after that, the company client, the manufacturer, either takes them on permanently. So our clients, manufacturers, they stopped all permanent recruitment. So the side of the business that dealt with permanent recruitment came to a standstill. But instead, because of a lot of the companies that we work with, so we work with food manufacturers, the likes of Morrison's, we work with chemical manufacturers, so the likes of Ineos, which makes hand sanitizers, they were all looking for temporary workers. The production went through the roof and they were needing all these temporary workers. So as a business, we went from an equal split between permanent and temporary workers, and the main focus became temporary workers that became key workers to ensure food production increased, and then hand sanitizer was made. So it was actually a really busy time for manufacturing recruitment. And as the lockdown went on, it was actually manufacturing and construction. They were key workers, and they could be seen to be going to the workplace because they needed to keep the wheels of industry turning.
Thanks for explaining that, Laura. Mark, how did it impact upon you?
So my personal experience, we went to immediate home working. Much of my job really is spent talking to my clients and understanding their businesses. So rather than going out to see them, we did a lot of this. We did a lot of Teams calls, a lot of Teams meetings, which was a bit of a shame because I'm someone who likes to do this thing face to face. In terms of our client impact, a lot of our manufacturing clients suffered a little bit through loss of staff, through having to isolate. There's a lot of issues through supply of materials as well. But the business was always there. So now they're in this period of having come through COVID with fewer staff on the ground, a slowdown on materials. They're having to almost catch up. So they're in this period now where there's almost a double whammy effect, that they've got all the ongoing business, but all the stuff that's been delayed from the prior year as well. So now they're really desperate to invest in getting more people into the business so they can start to not only catch up, but to keep growing as well. So it's it's sort of coming out of there really strongly in this area.
I think that tells you we've all experienced 2 years of intense change and had to respond to that and react to it. So students, I think you've probably seen that everybody's been impacted in different ways by that. Really important question. 9AG7, what would you like to ask the panel, please?
Is it more common for people to get into manufacturing through an apprenticeship or through a degree?
Jack, what are your thoughts on that?
It depends, because there's an even amount of degree apprenticeships to BTEC apprenticeships, or your MVQ level 3, 4 apprenticeships. So it depends really. I mean, from an interviewer's kind of perspective, I wouldn't have thought that it would make a lot of difference, but depending on what sector you're going into, like you've got obviously the engineering manufacturing industry, and then you've got accountancy. So from that perspective, I'd probably suggest that it all depends on what you want to go into.
Thanks for answering that way, Jack. I completely agree with you. 9AG8, could we get a question from you, please?
Hiya. So we've actually got 2 questions, if you don't mind. One of them is, do manufacturing employers check social media accounts of prospective employees? And how do you create a welcoming environment in the manufacturing industry for your employees?
Okay, so I'm going to come to Eleanor second and ask about the welcoming environment. Laura, can you talk to us about whether companies check social media? I'm delighted this question's been asked. Thank you.
So the answer to that is yes, companies do check social media. So every time you post on social media, it's in the public domain. So you need to be aware of what it is you're posting, because it's not just your friends that are going to be viewing it, it's potential employers in the future. So it's one to be aware of.
And how can that impact? Can it have a positive impact, or is it negative, or can it be both?
I think it can be both. I suppose it depends what you're posting, really. I mean, if you're posting about climate change and you're doing something positive, and you're doing your bit for recycling, or you volunteered somewhere, obviously they're all really positive things, and it's something that an employer would want to see. Maybe if you're being a little bit negative in your opinion about, I don't know, for example, football, or and you have something negative to say, which maybe you just share with your friends. It's a difficult one, because I do appreciate that social media is generally a platform where you share things with friends, but you've just got to be aware that people other than friends do see it, and if you didn't want your future employer to see it, don't put it on there.
That's really great advice. Eleanor, how do organisations create welcoming environment or welcoming culture so that they're somewhere that you want to work?
So for me, when I started at Seeker, the welcoming environment was created by the people I work with. So I was buddied up with someone that had been there for about 3 years, doing the same job that I was going to go into. And they're all pretty much willing to help you, do whatever you need to do, train you up. They don't just leave you to your own devices. If a company does that, they're not a good company, put it that way. If they don't train you up properly, that's not a good thing. There's no like stabbing in the back or anything like that. They showed me around the whole factory where I'm working now, so not just the area that I'm in. I got a full scope of what goes on, so that I knew what I was doing and how it was contributing to the rest of the business. So I felt like I was a part of the business before I even started.
That sounds great. What do you do on a day-to-day basis, Eleanor?
So my job role is a silicon mixer. So if you think of something in your mum's kitchen, like think of a Kenwood mixer or something like that. Think of that times like 1,000. And I'm putting chemicals into that and powders and things. You're monitoring the temperature. You're monitoring like the vacuum pressure and things like that. And it just comes out in a massive pot. You have to move that with a forklift, and it's quite hands-on. So you're monitoring a machine whilst being careful with chemicals and lots of other different machinery.
Wow,
yeah.
Sounds like a lot of responsibility to me. Jack, could you talk us through what you do every day, please?
So I'll basically, when material comes in from suppliers, I'll book it into stock. I'll check that what they've been delivered is correct. I'll then find out where that needs to go, whether it be to one of our other units or for it to stay here in our unit for fabrication. And then obviously, if it needs to go somewhere else, I'll organise it to go to that destination and be utilised, I guess.
Thanks for talking us through that, Jack. 9AG9, could we take another question from your classroom, please?
Hello again. So we're wondering, how do you see manufacturing changing over the next 10 years?
Laura, you work with a lot of manufacturers. How do you think things are going to change in the next 10 years?
So we are on the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution, and what that means is we're going into an age of automation and robotics, and I think that is going to change the actual roles that we need to recruit for. So yes, we have got these robots, these automations, and yes, they will take some of the roles of the people that would necessarily be putting it together by hand or be more involved, like pressing buttons. But what you've got to remember is we need these people that are actually going to program the robots. They have that digital know-how and skills, and they can use the data, and they can read the data, and they can analyze the data. So we are obviously going more down the digital route, but with that brings new opportunities, and there's also some new roles that are emerging from that.
Thanks, Laura. Mark, I know accountants help businesses forecast financially for the future. Where do you see things going in the next 10 years?
Quite similar to what Laura said. I think digitalisation and technology is going to be key. Quite often, the way manufacturing businesses run can be a little bit outdated. So I think getting young people into those businesses to give new ideas and innovative suggestions is going to be key to helping them adapt and progress their businesses, really.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. 9AG1, could we get another question from you, please?
So AG1 are very much motivated by the idea of money and travel, and a lot of kind of the ideas that have been floating around here have been very much about, right, if they do an apprenticeship, if they work really hard, how can they climb the ladder, and what's their next steps if they've done their apprenticeship?
That's a really good question. Laura, what would you suggest on that?
I think if they have done an apprenticeship and they've done really, really well, if they're actually in a company which wants them to progress and climb up the career ladder, which if you're working for a company where you've done an apprenticeship, obviously they value fresh blood, new people. They're aware of, they want people to come in and learn really good skills and be able to do the job. So these companies want to nurture these individuals, and a lot of companies will actually pay for individuals if they're excelling and they have lots of potential prospects to go on and be managers and leaders. They may pay for their degrees. So that's one to be aware of when you're actually researching companies, to see not only their apprenticeship scheme, but also after that, if they will actually pay for employees to go on and do degrees.
That makes sense. Mark, you're the money man on the panel. How much people that set up their own organisation, so whether it's locally or further afield, how much do the top people potentially could they earn?
It can vary very significantly, to be honest, depending on the type of business and the size of the business and how geographically diverse they are. Top management, generally speaking, are on six-figure salaries, I would say, in some of those top businesses.
Excellent, thanks for that. 9AG2, can we get a question from you, please?
How long do you work on an average day?
That's a great question. Jack, talk to us about your average day, please.
So I start at 7:30 and I finish at 4:30. There's obviously overtime that can be added onto that, so I could finish at 5 o'clock. And then on a Friday, it's the same again, 7:30 start, but again, it depends. You can finish at 12:30 or you can finish at 3:30. So It is varied within the industry as well, because I know that some businesses do work until 4:30 every day and do start a later time, like 8 o'clock, for example.
Thanks for that. Early Fridays sound good to me. Eleanor, what about your hours? How different are they?
Very different. So my hours, I start at 10 at night and then I finish at 6 in the morning. So I do permanent nights, and that is Sunday night to Thursday night every single week. So it is like a 9 to 5 job, but flipped on its head. But it's absolutely fine. The roads are quieter to get to work and everything, and there is an increased pay for those that are interested in money. There is an increased pay for those on sociable hours. So it's definitely worth it.
Thank you for talking us through that, Eleanor. 9AG3, can we get a question from you, please?
Hi guys. Some of my form of ask, was there anybody that inspired you to go into manufacturing, or was it just simply a personal choice?
Jack, what about you?
I think I've kind of touched on this earlier. I was inspired by my granddad, because he used to work at tanks down there where I live in Crossgates. He used to work at Vickers. So I've kind of been brought up around manufacturing in general, you know, and there's been, you know, my dad and my stepdad have both worked in manufacturing in one way or another. So I've been brought up around it really, and I kind of guess that's what led me towards this area of industry.
Thanks, Jack. Eleanor?
Quite similar to Jack, actually. My granddad was quite a big influence in this. He was an engineer who used to actually make cogs to go in machines. So measuring out all the different angles on those cogs and making sure that they're correct for the machine to run. It's quite technical and mathematical stuff. And that's all he goes on about now, is when I was in engineering, and I know what it's like now, so you don't have to tell me. But yeah.
And before we wrap up, Jack, if somebody is watching this and they've been inspired to want to find out a little bit more about manufacturing, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I'd definitely have a look at the Leeds Manufacturing Festival and have a look at what we're doing to help promote manufacturing in Leeds. I'd definitely try and get involved in the First Direct Arena. Every year, once a year, there's a big festival down at the arena where loads of businesses, manufacturing companies in general just get down and get together and just advertise their businesses. And I'd definitely have a look at the government website as well, because they do an apprentice page where they have a list of all the different apprenticeships, whether that be manufacturing or it be hair and beauty or anything really. And basically that'll help you pinpoint what you want to do or what area is best, ideally.
Really good advice from you there, Jack. Eleanor, could we have a final couple of inspiring sentences from you about manufacturing and working in the sector, please?
Okay, so don't get hung up about money and things when it comes to apprenticeships, because that will come later in time. If you work hard, then it will come later in time. Just throw yourself into something, even if you feel this might not be the right thing for me, just try it, because you never know. You absolutely don't know. Just take every single opportunity that comes to you, and yeah, just see what comes to you.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. Thank you to the panel. Thank you for answering so openly and honestly, and for your wise words. Students and teachers, thank you very much for your insightful questions. We're really grateful. Thank you for joining us today. And once again, the Leeds Manufacturing Festival would like to thank the sponsors, E3 Recruitment, Safri Champness and Leeds City College. So thank you all very much for joining us today.
Thank you for your time, everybody. Year 9, please can we say thank you if your tutors don't mind switching the mic on? Right, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.